What's going on, everybody? It's your boy KRYPTONIAN SAIYAN here, bringing you guys another Chainsaw Man chapter review. And now that chapter 103 is done in the books, we got a lot to talk about because the story looks like it might be briefly shifting back to Denji's perspective, and most importantly, our boy Denji hasn't changed at all. In part 1, he wanted to risk it all to touch some boobs, and in part 2, he's willing to throw away his secret of being the Chainsaw Man in order to get the ladies to love him, because Denji learned that clout makes getting pussy easier. I joked last chapter that Denji saved the pussycat in order to get some pussy, but this man was legit about to give out his phone number on live television in order to get some pussy. Never change, Denji, never change. Now that my initial thoughts and jokes are out of the way, let's back things up a little bit and get into the review. So being blunt, our boy Denji was pretty base in this chapter. A good refresher from what we've seen with Asa Mitako, who, while blunt and refreshing in her own right, she doesn't have the same charm about her as someone like Denji. However, the thing about Denji's charm is that Fujimoto chose to choose this chapter to show that while he does draw some amazing battle sequences in the past filled with blood and gore, he still has his chops when it comes to comedy that he slipped into part 1 of Chainsaw Man. The scenes where Denji is eating cake with his hands when the utensils are taken from him by Yoshida, and he's trying his best to try and play wingman for himself on camera, trying to big up Chainsaw Man, is so cringe, and it's so sad to see that it's actually funny. And like a lot of the humor that you saw in part 1 of Chainsaw Man, it didn't feel forced. It felt like it was organic humor, which that is the mark of a good writer. However, this wasn't a chapter that was solely focused on the comedy. Don't get it twisted. A majority of the chapter is just about getting the reactions of the people who were being interviewed by the news reporter. Some people, they love Chainsaw Man. Others think that the devil hunter should just outright kill him. Some think that he's part of American propaganda. Some hate the fact that he's causing so much property damage. Some think that he only saved the cat in order to eat it, which at that point, it prompts our boy Denji to show up on camera and say, hey, I take offense to that. Chainsaw Man would never eat a cat. And he goes on to give himself huge compliments by bigging up Chainsaw Man, and it's because he's trying to get himself laid by a woman who might be watching the news and wants to learn the hard way if every part of Chainsaw Man is a chainsaw when he transforms. But the cameraman's like, yeah, we're gonna be cutting that part out. No need to give your number out on screen. And Denji looks so disappointed because he thought that was a surefire way to get himself some box. In the time afterwards, when they're seen chanting Chainsaw Man's name, we see further evidence of just how much the world has changed from part 1 of Chainsaw Man to part 2 of Chainsaw Man, which goes back to what we saw a couple of chapters ago when the man was preaching on the corner and he was warning people that devils aren't what you think they are. The leading cause of death is death by a devil. Don't cheer for a devil like Chainsaw Man while thinking that you're gonna die peacefully, you're gonna die in your sleep or whatnot, because in reality, you're likely gonna die alone at the hands of a devil. In this moment, when they're all chanting Chainsaw Man's name, Denji is just standing there soaking it all in. And that's when Yoshida pops up. Now, at this point, every one of us manga readers who thought that the two of them might be working together just got hit with a double-fisted middle finger by Fujimoto in this chapter, because that is going to be far from the case. Denji basically pulled a Thanos from Endgame when Wanda pulled up on him and asked Thanos if he remembered her, and he hit her with the "I don't even know you" line. That's pretty much what Denji did here. He doesn't even remember Yoshida, which even crazier is the fact that Yoshida's orders are specifically to watch Denji to make sure he doesn't give away his secret identity as Chainsaw Man, which that's gonna be hard to do just given the fact that Denji has had his mind made up that he's earned all the clout as Chainsaw Man that he can, so he's cashing it in so he can get himself a harem of pussy to fuck. And that response by Yoshida tells it all. He's stunned while potentially thinking to himself, that's not actually a bad idea and it could work, and I got a way that it might be able to actually solve all of our problems. My man's got his hand on the chin like, damn, this is so simple that it's brilliant. And I'll get into how Yoshida could be cashing in on this in a little bit, but I want to talk about something else here. So the serious question we have to ask though is, this does beg the question, who in the world actually sent Yoshida to Denji's school to keep an eye on him? Because this has the potential to be a problem here. While like Denji pretty much asked him, what will you do if I don't comply with your request to keep myself a secret? But Fujimoto hid the darkness to the answer of the question behind comedy by having Yoshida hold back the fork and say, "I won't let you eat cake again." The true answer is likely something else, but what I find fascinating is the fact that just as Makima tried to hold something over Denji to make him comply, it kind of feels like Yoshida might be doing something similar here, which I think is brilliant writing if he does so. However, even if that's not the case, I do think Yoshida had an aha moment in the chapter, and I think everyone who's been waiting to see Denji and Mitaka meet are gonna have their wishes fulfilled. As far as Yoshida knows, Mitaka is in his group at school and she wants a boyfriend. Denji just wants some pussy, but Yoshida can't let this man expose his identity to the world. Could he have just snapped his fingers in this moment and said Mitaka plus Denji equals problem solved? I think it's possible, but the issue with that is that it makes you call into question just how good of a devil hunter Yoshida is, and here's why. We were told, literally in chapter 1 of the manga, when a human is possessed by a devil, you can see it on their faces, you can see it in their eyes. Makima made that pretty much clear when she was talking, and she confirmed that Denji is still human. However, if Yoshida missed it about Mitaka and Yoru the war devil, boy does that make for a huge conflict, because it's going to be a matter of when and not if that these two end up clashing, because Yoru wants to get her hands on the Chainsaw Man. That being said, another highlight of this chapter is that we do see some substance to Denji. It should make you look at him potentially a little bit different. Like in part 1 of the story, we see that this man is really petty at times, more times than we can count. He's horny as hell, more times than you could ever hope to count, and he's not above telling lies if it's something that suits him. Right now, I think we're seeing that Denji might have grown a little bit and he might be thinking a few steps ahead. Yoshida said it himself in chapter 103 of the manga, i.e. this chapter, which is, "Hey, do you remember me? I was there in part 1 of Chainsaw Man and you had all these assassins trying to kill you. Remember that, buddy? Wild times, right?" However, Denji stares at him and very quickly says, "Yeah, that never happened." Except we as the audience know it did happen, and those events happened right before the Gun Devil arc. In the Gun Devil arc, Aki has the conversation with the future devil in chapter 73 of the manga, and he's told that Denji will kill Aki and Power in the future. What ended up happening? Both of them are dead right now. And I think that's something that Denji is grappling with. Grief is different for different people, and I think there's a chance that Denji's way of handling that grief might be to try and forget that part of his life, except perhaps the promise he made to Power when she gave him her blood to drink. However, I don't think Denji is running per se, not running away from his problems, because we have Nayuta, the reincarnation of the Gun Devil who Denji's raising. I think there's more to Denji pretending not to know anything about Yoshida that we haven't seen yet, and I think it could have something to do with the reincarnation of the Control Devil, because her power in the wrong hands can essentially turn her into another Makima, and that was the whole reason why she was given to him. That being said, I'm very curious to know you guys' thoughts on this. Is Denji just horny, or does our man actually have a reason? Perhaps a little girl he's having to raise that is making him keep Yoshida at a distance? Or do you think it's a little too early to bring little Nayuta back into the story? While you think that over, consider watching these other videos you see on the screen right now.